Okay, Oscar fans, we just saw one of the biggest shockers in modern times at the Oscars last night. And we're here with Chris Beachum, Daniel Montgomery, Paul Sheehan, Tom O'Neill, and I'm Marcus Dixon. Tom, I'm going to come to you. There was a moment where we all thought La La Land had won, and then they said, no, 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 we're just kidding. It's Moonlight.
Yeah, I think even bigger than the moment of the confused envelopes and the wrong announcement. You know, what is unappreciated here, or not appreciated enough, is the fact that Moonlight won. I mean, that's just so shocking. This is the biggest upset in modern Oscar history. We knew that Spotlight could take down frontrunner Revenant last year. We knew that Birdman was within striking distance of Boyhood. But when we've had, even if you go back to the Crash versus Brokeback Mountain year, that year we knew Crash was a factor. It had we had felt that it was in the air, but this was, I think, just not taken seriously as a possibility by most experts. Let's say that out of the 30 experts at Gold Derby, 28 predicted La La Land and only 2 went for Moonlight. Hats off to Sasha Stone and to Matt Adjeci of Rotten Tomatoes. They nailed it, but boy, it was like the Donald Trump win at the presidency. You just didn't think it was possible.
I had already tweeted out the winner. La La Land wins. Chris had already determined, in our predictions center that La La Land had won. And then we had to go, wait a minute. What's going on?
So Daniel, you wrote an article about your reasons as to how it happened. Take over here. Tell us, why did it happen?
Well, as soon as I was able to wrap my head around it, my first thought after, I saw that Moonlight was suddenly being announced the winner was, oh my goodness, I have to edit that paragraph in my initial article. But then things started to crystallize for me around the whole overdog underdog thing that Moonlight and La La Land had, and how that affects the preferential ballot. And I wrote in this article, if La La Land had won 2 or 3 Golden Globes and not set a record with 7, if it had gotten 10 or 11 Oscar nominations instead of tying a record with 14, it wouldn't have had the weight of its own expectations on it so much. It wouldn't have seemed like this film that, if you hadn't seen it early, if you're seeing it after all of this hype, then a lot of times you're going to be looking at this thing going like, that tied Titanic and All About Eve? That's the most awarded Golden Globe winner of all time. And that's not something that you want voters asking themselves, or the comparisons you want them making when they're trying to decide whether to rank you 1st or 9th on a ballot. While at the same time, the underdog factor for Moonlight, even if it wasn't your favorite film, I don't know that there were many people who it was their least favorite film. It feels like the kind of film that everyone respected, if not it was their favorite. And if you look at some of the films on that preferential ballot, what films are getting knocked out first? Maybe a Hacksaw Ridge or a Hell or High Water. Well, if you're a fan of Hacksaw or Hell or High Water or Fences or Hidden Figures, is your number 2 more likely Moonlight or La La Land? And I think we discovered that it was most likely Moonlight.
There were 2 jokes that Jimmy Kimmel, let me just let this slip in real quick. 2 jokes Jimmy Kimmel made in the ceremony I think were very telling, one being that hinting basically that the Oscars didn't watch Moonlight, and the other thing is that Moonlight you're not allowed to dislike Moonlight. More on that later, but go ahead, Paul.
Well, no, I think that, really, we are the 538 of Oscar prognostication, and just like with the general election, you're looking at 2 candidates, and there's different standards applied. And La La Land was the Hillary Trump of this election, and Moonlight was the Donald Trump. And I think that we, as a whole, the Oscar blogosphere, are guilty of creating these unrealistic expectations of La La Land. And we made a big deal about the record number of nominations, and it could break the record. So people, when they came, and don't forget, they only started voting a couple of weeks ago. They came to look at it again, whether they watched it on a screen again or reconsidered it, and they have all of that in their head. Nominations, it's got the record, it's what Daniel says. And so there's this higher threshold that it has to cross. And really, Moonlight is the Donald Trump. It showed up and it could walk and talk at the same time. And so the expectation is, okay, that's better than I sort of recall it being. And you look at the guilds, and La La Land consistently does well at the guilds. It contends in 12 guilds, it wins at 10. Moonlight at 6, it wins at 3. The industry individually wasn't enamored with Moonlight. It's only because of the preferential ballot, which I would argue it's time to throw it out. How do you have the best directed film consistently not being the best movie?
4 out of the last 5
and it's only under the preferential ballot.
Happened, yeah.
Yeah. The prize is that you're okay. I don't understand the Academy's rationale that they're okay in a 5-candidate contest with somebody winning the 20% plus 1. But suddenly, when it comes to Best Picture, and don't forget that's a sliding scale, there can be as low as 5 or as many as 10, suddenly the X% plus 1 doesn't work anymore. So you can be any of the other 23 awards and win with 20% plus 1. But for Best Picture, you've got to go through this whole convoluted counting system. And you...
Yes.
I think we should throw out the preferential ballot and go back to how it used to be.
Well, I don't know. I think I'm going to stand up for the preferential ballot. I do kind of like it in theory, and not just because a movie I love won. I wouldn't have actually minded.
Well, then apply it to every race, Daniel. Apply it to every race if you're so enamored of it.
I do. Yeah. I'm not just going to stand up for it because of Moonlight. I'm going to stand up for it because when you have when you have a list of films that's 8 or 9 long to choose from, divide that by 100%. You need like 15-20% less to win. So the idea that you could win Best Picture with support of really a fraction of the Academy, I can understand why they would want to factor in people who maybe didn't vote for something number 1, but it's still one of their favorite movies of the year, and to build that consensus into it, as opposed to just, 15% of Academy members love this. It doesn't matter if the other 85% absolutely hated it. It wins Best Picture. I don't mind the consensus aspect of it.
Does it? What about when if there ends up a year where there are only 5 Best Picture nominees? Like there
Why
used
not?
to be, when it was a plurality.
Well, in which case you would need 20% plus 1, and then you could have 79% of the Academy potentially hating the Best Picture, and
which
I don't mind.
For 65 years. This is the thing you're ignoring, is that from 1945 through 2008, that's how they decided the Best Picture. So,
well, I'm not saying that was terrible. I'm just saying that I don't mind them using this. I don't mind them, using this metric now. It doesn't seem like a bad change to me.
Chris, be a voice of reason.
Well, I'll go on another tangent. I said this late last night. I think I was the last one to join the post show because I was working on redoing the score reports. But the Academy right now, as bad as that moment was for them, they are unbelievably fortunate that, let's say they had given it to Moonlight, then took it away from Moonlight and gave it to La La Land. Can you imagine the outcry? So
Riots. There'd be riots everywhere. And
there would be.
And the La La Land.
I hadn't thought of that, Chris. That's really a fascinating concept. Wow.
The La La Land.
No, I disagree. I think that has a presumption to it that's slightly offensive. That's why is it?
No,
why
I don't even mean just
another?
Moonlight. I mean one of the underdogs, Manchester, Lion. If they had named something other than La La Land and then said no, it's La La Land, I think there would have been a big outcry.
Yeah, it's sort of it's the overdog underdog thing. I think it's like the Patriots coming back and winning the Super Bowl after they were behind. It's like, a lot of people were bummed by that who don't even follow sports, and so the fact that the top dog won, but it or at least we thought it was, and then it turned out to be one of the underdogs. I think that's why it doesn't feel quite as irksome as if like Moonlight producers got it ripped out of their hands, or Manchester producers, or if Hidden Figures had won, Hidden Figures producers got it ripped out of their hands and given to La La Land.
The other thought I had along those lines was, at least there were a bunch of people on stage and they can kind of, scurry off together. It would have been, I can't even imagine how it would have felt if it had been like an individual on stage, and taking it away from an individual, get to give it to another individual for the person that got it taken away, as well as the one that has to walk up the steps and now take over. I mean, that would have been...
Ask Miss Columbia.
Yeah, the Miss Universe situation.
And this wasn't the Golden Globes Best Song. This wasn't the Emmys Best Guest Star. This was the Oscars Best Picture, the best of the best. And this is the category that it happened in. What are the chances of that? It's never happened before.
Think about this. What do the people who put on this show do for a living? They put on shows. These are not the people who are supposed to get putting on a show wrong. I mean, this is what it's not like Miss Universe. They do other things, and then they happen to have an award show that gets on the air. These guys make movies, move cameras around, direct scenes, move bodies, have schedules, and they screwed it up. And that's what's made it all the more outrageous.
They didn't screw it up, Tom. The two accountants, the two people in the world that knew the results.
That's true.
I don't blame the producers. I thought it was the best produced Oscars from the first minute till that, next to last couple of minutes since the Hugh Jackman year that was your buddy Bill Condon and Bill Mechanic.
I would agree with that. That was superbly produced.
Just from Justin Timberlake all the way through Jimmy Kimmel through.
In Memoriam was fantastic. The fact that they killed off somebody who was alive, but it had moment after moment that in the art, the art direction, the whole thing was wonderful.
I do say, Warren and Faye are partly to blame. If you open an envelope and it has the wrong category, like Daniel said at the Annie Awards, you tell them, guys, this is not the right envelope. You don't read what's on it.
Well, it's easy to be the Monday morning quarterback. I think you're in the moment, and you're very trusting, and you've done this before. I think that the Academy should have taken my suggestion and had Jack Nicholson and Meryl Streep presenting Best Picture, and then neither of them would have made such a boneheaded mistake. Jack Nicholson's done it a record number of times, and how you have Meryl Streep, who starred in 2 Best Picture winners, never having presented that prize is beyond me.
One thing about Warren Beatty too, as a producer himself, he tries to look at it. He gives them like 20, 25 seconds fumbling around and looking at it and looking to see if something else is in the envelope. I thought he did an admirable job of trying to let somebody run out there and try to do something.
He's a director who should have called cut.
Yeah, no one can know that there's a problem unless, like, even Lauren or Faye Dunaway didn't know that there was a problem, as when she thought he was milking it for kind of
But he knew what he was doing.
But no one can read his mind at that moment. No one backstage can think can telepathically think, oh, that's Emma Stone's name that he's reading. It's the wrong category. Go out and get him the right one. Until he shows it to Faye Dunaway, and she just blurts out La La Land.
Well, he could have easily turned around and said, I don't have the right envelope.
You know who could have told him it was the wrong envelope? Is one of those 2 accountants that was sitting there and had the Best Picture envelope in their hand still. Now, part of Envelope Gate is that they went to a new design this year, which was a very dark color, and there's dark printing on the dark colored envelope. But that person who gave Warren Beatty the Best Actress envelope, at some point you would have thought they'd realize they still had the Best Picture envelope.
Right. No, it is absolutely the fault of the accountant. There's no doubt about it.
And what took 3 minutes in the wings?
That's my question.
One of those accountants was busy tweeting out a photo of Emma Stone holding her Oscar. Well, Emma Stone got out on that stage before the accountant did. And Chris, you made a brilliant point this morning about those accountants and what they would have been primed for.
Well, that's what Tom didn't get. This was just in our morning meeting, and I said, you as the only 2 people in the world that know Moonlight won, right? You know that's a surprise. I mean, you got to follow all this stuff. So wouldn't you be standing there at the corner of the curtain going, well, I can't wait to see the reaction when this envelope's open.
Absolutely.
So you're one of the only people in the world that knows that, 2 people. So that alone, they should have run out there.
Right.
That's your job. That's the one job you're given and you said, as you said, Chris, they don't write these lists down. They have to memorize them because they don't want any written.
They quiz each other during the overnight.
Yeah. The ratings were not very good, but the Monday morning quarterback, more people are talking about the Oscars on the Monday after than have ever talked about the Oscars because of that moment.
Oh, next year's promotional campaign will be anything can happen on the Oscars, and they're going to really People will tune in next year because they didn't, the ones that didn't this year.
Now, do you know who is talking about them is President Trump, who said that the reason the mistake happened is because they were too obsessed with politics. So I know, Daniel, you wrote about that, that you asked people if there was too much, too little, or just the right amount of politics. So where were our Goldilocks readers? Where did they come in on that?
I actually haven't checked the results. I actually personally thought that there would be more. I mean, following the SAG Awards and Meryl Streep at the Golden Globes, we got smatterings here and there, like the best foreign language film Oscar to The Salesman and a couple of aside here and there, but you didn't get an orator. You didn't get like David Harbour doing the Stranger Things speech. You didn't get even Julia Louis-Dreyfus or Meryl Streep or anything like that. And I was a little bit disappointed because I thought it was kind of an opportunity to say just screw this guy who is our fake president now. And but I think what happened is that the winners and under these circumstances, this is the Oscars. Like if you're Viola Davis, if you're Mahershala Ali, no offense to the SAG Awards, but you go to the SAG Awards and you're like, you know what, I'm going to stand up to Donald Trump. But if you're at the Oscars, it's like this is your Oscar moment. It's like you don't even want Donald Trump to be a part of it.
I think that's why Tom was asking me yesterday. I think it was for one of his interviews, not what presenters might get political. Winners, because they don't necessarily know they're walking up there. But presenters, the ones like a Samuel L. Jackson or a Meryl Streep or whoever, they have plenty of opportunity because they know they're going out on stage to think about what they might say beyond the scripted stuff.
Right.
So,
when you look back at Oscar history, at the most notorious examples of celebrities taking over the show on behalf of their politics, they were presenters. It was Eddie Murphy shutting down the presentation of Best Picture, going on to a tirade about how African Americans are treated or not treated by Hollywood. And then you've got the famous Tim Robbins, Susan Sarandon moment, where they went on about HIV and Haitian refugees, and then the colossally ridiculous moment where Richard Gere puts his hands up to his head and tells the whole audience, join me in all of us sending a thought to China to get out of Tibet. Well, it was so ridiculous. But we knew that Meryl Streep wasn't going to win last night, but we thought that with her as a presenter, that something, wacky could happen. But I like the way they handled it with just standing up and giving her a standing ovation that way. It was just a wonderful way to do it.
Gael Garcia Bernal, our buddy at Gold Derby, he said something about not wanting a wall, and actually Trump saw that speech, and now there's no more wall. So very effective. Bernal.
Very effective.
Yeah.
By the way, Gael's PR people, you never, if you've got kind of a short actor, you don't pair him up with somebody that's like a foot taller. You pick somebody that's maybe the actress that's the same height. That made him look like he was really like 5 feet tall when he's not.
Talk about the two gripes you had with the presenters, Amy Adams and.
I thought the producers made so many great decisions all night. Like Tom said, the art direction, the music, the clip packages, the clips from the nominees. But there's no way in the world, and it would have been one easy swap. Ben and Matt should not be presenting original screenplay to the Manchester writer, Lonergan. And Amy Adams should not be presenting in a category where Arrival is a major contender. They just should have swapped those two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think they did it.
Here's a really good reason why. I don't like it anyway. I think it smacks of, Amy looked a little bit disappointed, for example. But what if Matt and Ben had been the one with the wrong envelope? What if they said La La Land and then go, no, it is Ken Lonergan from Manchester? There would have been all kind of conspiracy theories since Ben's brother's in the movie and Matt's the producer.
Well, we learned that they could have actually said the wrong thing, and by the time that the accountants got out there, the fake winners would have left already with the award. So
right, if La La Land, if they had given just a 10-second speech, thank you everyone, and walked off, the show would have ended.
Yeah, that's right, Marcus. That's a good point. If they'd been terse. And if they'd been played off, if they'd been sort of really sticking to that 3.5 hour time slot and been played off, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think they were second to.
How would we have found out? They would have sent press releases. Sorry everyone, Moonlight actually won.
Well, it's a good thing that Manchester by the Sea wasn't in that envelope, because Jimmy Kimmel would have played off Matt Damon real fast.
That was the best. I laughed so hard at that.
The one thing that didn't work was that whole business about the Starline tour.
You didn't like that?
You liked it? I thought it was so stupid.
Here's what's so funny. While it's going on, I'm loving it. I think Marcus loved it too. In my mind, I'm thinking, oh, Tom's going to hate this.
Well, how did you know?
It was too long, but it was good.
It was too long, but it was so off the cuff that there's not many people, there's not many hosts that I think could have handled it as casually and funny as Jimmy Kimmel could.
He did a wonderful job handling very awkward situation. Yeah, it's the reason you're saying that is I unilaterally don't like squirm-inducing humor, and you knew that was just a setup for it, and bringing these poor tourists awkwardly into this room, and it's very uncomfortable for everyone. It's funny, it has its moments, but a lot depended on Jimmy being able to improv there, and I think he did it well.
And what if they had been duds? What if they had been people that didn't, want to talk or didn't want to, have any emotion at all or whatever? I mean, they got lucky. The only thing I would have changed if I had been involved would have been, you don't need everybody on the bus. You could have just picked the first 5 or 6 and maybe even pre-screen them a little bit of, oh, this guy's talkative, this girl's talkative, whatever. So
Tom, you were saying about, we knew Meryl Streep wasn't going to win. But didn't you all have a sense when categories didn't go the way we predicted, the way most of us had expected, the sound categories, a few of the others?
Right.
Didn't you have a sense, in a way, when we got to those top acting categories, Casey winning over Denzel, but I almost thought maybe it will be Meryl, maybe it'll be Isabel, and in a way, Moonlight winning initially, I don't know if I would have been as shocked, because there was no sweep. The sweep, how many, Marcus, I think you were keeping track of the La La Land losses in the beginning.
Yeah,
it was
the first win came at the 1 hour and 45 minute mark. And yes, I realized there was a lot of examples, categories where they were not in it, but still, the first trophy for La La Land, this was supposed to be the big La La Land night, did not occur until 1 hour and 45 minutes.
But then it won 5 in the last, say, hour and 10 minutes before Best Picture. So it felt like it was getting on a roll.
Tom will appreciate this. One of our newer contributors has just written about the eerie parallels between this year and 1972 with La La Land and Moonlight, and comparing it to Cabaret and The Godfather. And how The Godfather only win. This is what we forget, and this is interesting, because almost 50 years on, The Godfather makes every list of the top 10 films ever made. Cabaret is on those lists, but much further down. And yet Godfather only wins adapted screenplay. And as Jeffrey points out, that was by the director and this source materials originator. It wins an acting award. In the case of Godfather, it's Brando. And then it wins Best Picture. So Tom, you and I are probably the only ones old enough among us to remember that year. But Cabaret wins 8 awards and suddenly doesn't get Best Picture. It was shocking, wasn't it?
It does. It seems it's like the Dreamgirls situation, where Dreamgirls gets billions of nominations and doesn't get nominated for Best Picture. If you're Cabaret and you win all of these 8 awards, including Best Director, including actors, all of these things, you kind of deserve the Best Picture award. But yet, my God, this is The Godfather after all. So how did Bob Fosse beat Francis Ford Coppola and the director's race? There is a bit of an injustice there, I think film historians would say. But I think other people could make an artistic argument on behalf of Fosse. But still, the bottom line, though, Paul, what's faulty about your analogy is Moonlight ain't no The Godfather.
Well, it's up to film historians,
So in 2 years, we'll have a Moonlight Part 2? Is that what you're saying? And Barry will win director?
Here's what I think happened. This is what I think happened to cause this upset. Is if you're a typical participant in this, you tend to be rooting for one movie. I'm a Hacksaw fan. I'm a La La fan. You have your movie you're rooting for. And so if you're an Oscar voter, you're checking off Hacksaw Ridge or Lion, whatever it is that you're rooting for, number one. And then this is where the backlash of La La comes in. And I didn't take it seriously. We saw evidence of it here and there, but I didn't realize it was as strong and as widespread as it was. So you're going to put your number one first, and then you'll put everybody else's second because you want to be on the winning team, remember? And then you'll put La La down. We saw last year the most divisive film being the presumptive frontrunner in that race, and it lost. This year, La La was divisive, and we didn't take that seriously enough. As you need a consensus, as we're saying. And I think that in the end, La La won simply because everyone knew it was everyone else's favorite. Jimmy Kimmel made reference to the fact that you're not allowed to dislike Moonlight. I mean, they're really the thought police were out. What was politically correct and not was this was a movie you were not allowed to say anything bad about, and he referred jokingly to that, and also to the fact that a lot of people didn't watch Moonlight. So we may have had a new Best Picture winner that most Oscar voters didn't see, just a phenomenon we had a few years ago with 12 Years a Slave, right, Paul? A movie. Is it possible, in other words, in our most cynical perspective on what happened last night, is it possible to believe that the Oscar voters really didn't watch Moonlight, but it was their number two choice because it was everyone else's thing, and that it would actually won without being seen?
Well, it doesn't even have to be the number two choice. All it had to be was ranked above La La Land on enough ballots of the other 7 Best Picture nominees. And Tom, I was so surprised when you said you were hearing people dismissing La La Land as blah blah land. I mean, there was the backlash, and I go back to what I said at the beginning. I think that we collectively set it up for failure. We put so much onto it as I said, the Oscar blogosphere, that it collapsed under the weight of that. It couldn't be everything that, as Daniel said, the record number of nominations, the potential for this record-breaking run. I think there
are other years where a frontrunner emerges and stays there, and there's no suspense, like this seemed to be this year. 12 Years a Slave, The Artist, American Beauty are all years of where frontrunner was there and it just ran the board, and the way it looked as if.
No, not 12 Years a Slave. 12 Years a Slave tied with Gravity at the PGA.
Oh, that's true.
Which uses Daniel's preferential ballot.
And Gravity won director.
Good point.
Yeah. But you're right about these other years. That
Moonlight won 0 BAFTA awards.
So I think we're really got a lot of next year, which starts soon. I know we're compiling a list of the movies that'll be in the running. I think we're going to have a much harder time of it, and I guess it also gives us a bit of an escape clause.
And next year, when if a frontrunner misses SAG Best Ensemble, even if there's only one cast member in it, do not sleep on that. Do not take for granted that it's a fluke, because wow.
Do you think, Tom? Do you think that this could cause studios to delay releasing films, not bring them to Venice and Toronto, not get them talked about at Telluride, go back to the more traditional come out at Christmas platform release like Hidden Figures? You think that studios might be rethinking their Oscar strategies?
I think they're already delaying things as long as possible, and with little artsy films like La La and Moonlight, they do have such a gradual, slow build platform release. And then as soon as it becomes obligatory to see it as part of the Oscar race, that's when they go wide. That was the initial plan for La La as well as Moonlight. Moonlight never took off, but La La did, and so they kept adding more and more theaters. It had a much more ambitious, wide expansion than I think they originally planned. and of course now it's crossed. I think it's at the 300 million mark worldwide. But I don't know. Well,
last year, I don't know, every year is so different. Last year, Spotlight basically had this same kind of an approach from their side, you know, starting to be seen in September, lots of great word of mouth. We all had it in first place, but then others came in to take away its thunder over time. So it never had that traction of being, you know, the overwhelming front runner like La La Land. And I think that helped it ultimately, but you can't, as a campaigner, you can't necessarily prepare for what's going to happen with the other movies. The only thing I think we've learned in the last couple of years, even if you have a massive name director like a Martin Scorsese, releasing at the very last minute, trying to cram it into December is not going to work. It's just, you better be out before then and be part of the conversation.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was actually thinking about. La La Land is interesting, is maybe even the opposite would have helped it. You know, if it had gone to the same festivals and all that sort of stuff, but don't wait until December to release, because that gave a lot of time for a lot of anticipation to build. That maybe people who hadn't seen it earlier might have had those, you know, been disappointed to see it, because, you know, we saw Spotlight, I believe, was a November release. I think Argo also had a situation where it seemed to be out front and then other films kind of came into play, but it was October or November. And we still haven't seen in a while. I think it's still been since $1 Million Baby, a December film, a December theatrical release winning Best Picture.
Well, if the Oscars, one of the reasons they were created was as a marketing tool, and now you've got the lowest sort of modern day, in terms of modern day films, the lowest budgeted film winning. It's made $22 million. I don't know really how much of a boost it's going to get. And then you've got the so-called loser, La La Land, as you said, Tom, already topping 300 million globally. I mean, it's sort of, which would you rather have if you were the Lionsgate people, all the green or that one piece of gold?
yeah.
Well, they've got plenty of green. I think Moonlight's going to get some gold overseas, though. It's only starting to play overseas, and that's where I think it's gonna come into play. And it's already sort of overperformed overseas in its early rollout. So, you know, it's not going to hit La La Land numbers by any means, but
based on its budget, it might be the most profitable movie this year.
It will, but there is nothing like it in Oscar history. Let's be honest here. This movie is going to travel overseas, and people are going to go in with huge expectations, and they're going to sit there. They're going to see this really little art film, and they're going to go, "What the f?" I mean, this is not your typical Oscar Best Picture winner, and that's maybe a good thing. But on the other hand, I think it's a shock to the system. It's a shock to the kind of film we normally see in the Pantheon. And maybe it's time to mix things up a little bit, but more and more the old formula of a movie having to have nothing but A-list stars, or a movie having to have made at least 100 million in the box office. Those were the criteria for winning Best Picture. Now all that stuff is gone, including the old rules of the most nominations means you win Best Picture. Tell that to La La Land. So it's a free-for-all now. And now that something like Moonlight wins, wow.
I wonder if John Legend had played Ryan Gosling's role in La La Land, would La La Land have won?
Or Michael B. Jordan. That was the one he was going after at first.
There was definitely a sense of we're not racist. Look, we're voting for this one and this one and this person in this film.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, we still have one more mystery to clear up. How the hell did Casey rally and win?
Oh, that was easy.
Because I think to Marcus's point, if some of the voters are thinking, well, if I'm ranking Moonlight fairly high, well, okay, then I'm giving Americans the supporting awards. I'm going to go to Casey for the lead actor.
I put it on a legal pad the other day because it was that one and Mahershala, the supporting, were just killing me trying to decide. And when I realized how many awards Casey had won compared to basically Denzel's one award, it was a big award, but it was just one. I just thought, even if I'm wrong, and I kept seeing over and over, Marcus and I talked about this, not just language of it was his favorite, their favorite Best Actor performance of the year. I kept seeing and reading and talking to people that they were saying it was their favorite acting performance of the last decade, which shocked me.
I saw that multiple times. The reason I switched to Casey, I had Denzel for SAG and I had Denzel for most of the way for the Oscars. But when we announced our Gold Derby Film Awards, and Daniel, in our live slugfest that we did, you said Casey wins, and it's not even close. Denzel was way at the bottom. Casey was way, way ahead. That's when I realized, the SAG thing was a fluke. Because of websites like ours and Variety and Deadline, we got the word out that Denzel had never won SAG. So that's why he won SAG. Everything else was Casey. Casey won every single award the whole season.
Yeah, and I think that BAFTA snub proved to be that's the one that ultimately turned me at the end. I think I was rooting for Denzel Washington so hard, and I knew that SAG had such a great track record, especially for Best Actor, that I was holding on to it to save my life. But at the last minute, I couldn't shake BAFTA. Not only did they not nominate Denzel, but they nominated Viola, and she won. So it was a meaningful snub of Denzel. It wasn't just incidental like some of these other Best Actors who aren't eligible for BAFTA because the film hasn't been released yet, or they didn't nominate the film for anything. In this case, it was the BAFTA snub that convinced me that, okay, that might have some weight here. So I switched back to Casey, and I thought, okay, either I'll be right or I'll be happier because I was rooting for Denzel. So, I at least got one of those things.
I was personally rooting for Denzel. I was hoping that I would be wrong because I thought.
And so was Brie Larson.
Oh, that was awkward.
My goodness.
Oh, so awkward. When she says Casey Affleck, she kind of has a scowl, and then when they walk off the stage together, it's very uncomfortable.
Well, maybe next year we can hope for Emma Stone presenting Best Actor to Andrew Garfield then.
Oh, that's funny.
I think that was kind of uncomfortable some of this season as well. Them having dated so long and now broken up, and they both get in at the Oscars in the same year. That's all these things are so interesting to me. What was the year, the actor has to come back and present to the actor? Didn't William Hurt and Marlene Matlin break up?
Marlene Matlin, yes.
They've been together a long time. They broke up, and then William Hurt has to come back the next year and present Best Actress to his former girlfriend.
Well, they're actors. Maybe they can act nice for a few minutes. I mean, they certainly, Tom, with your Starline tour thing, what I thought was, I thought that entire front row deserved an Oscar for acting like they actually liked the little people. I mean, I thought that.
How much Purell did Meryl Streep have to put on her hand after being kissed so often?
Right.
Anyway. All right, well, it's fun. So now we've maybe have done and dusted the Oscars, but Chris launched the Emmy Prediction Summit the other day. So it may be February 27th, but we will soon be doing these as we start talking about the Emmys.
Well, and the great thing is there's 16 categories, but we're out meeting. We've met with a lot of studios and networks already. We're still meeting with them, and they're giving us more and more information about. I mean, somebody gave me a show the other day I didn't even realize was debuting that has some good Emmy-friendly kind of people. So we're constantly adding names. We'll add more categories as we get 5 months here. We'll add more and more stuff to it as well.
Yep. So start predicting. And get it right this time, would you, people? Because I'm constantly saying I look at the top 24 and the All-Stars and the this and the that. Well, I'm despairing. I'm despairing about though I am about to do an interview with the person that did predict Moonlight was going to win Best Picture, did get both sound awards right, are the fellow that did the best in our contest and far better than any of us.
Got 20 out of 24, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's always somebody out there. And we were hoping, that was the other thing, Chris, after somebody did it perfect at Indie Spirits, we were hoping for a perfect score this year from somebody. So we'll have to wait.
Those crazy Oscar voters messed us all up.
Yeah, darn it. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.